Hi, welcome back to Pain and Revival podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Dr. Lacey Book. Dr. Lacey is a renowned chiropractor, an entrepreneur, and the co-author of None of Your Business. And today, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Great, I'm good. So, today I was gonna start off with I don't know if a lot of people know this about you, or if, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but I don't know if they know that we were just talking about how you were a bank teller before you were a chiropractor. So, if you want to tell us about that and how that led into your chiropractic career and who you
Yeah,
are today.
it's really funny because you actually made a comment. You were like, "Oh, I just could never picture you as a bank teller." It's funny. I was just thinking that is probably one of the most aligned jobs that I've had actually in my career because I've done so many odd jobs. I always say part of my upbringing is I grew up without like a lot of money. We lived in the Bay Area in California. Everything was really expensive. So I started working when I was 14 years old and
Yeah.
I've never not had a job. But there's like almost no job that I haven't done, from anything from serving to being a projectionist in a movie theater. I used to actually run film and like play movies like way back when. I've been a janitor, I've cleaned toilets, I was a bank teller. I mean, like you name it, I was a chiropractic assistant. I've done it. And so I painted, I did all sorts of things. But
Wow.
the bank telling position was really interesting because it was my second job ever. I had worked at the movie theater, then decided to go to the bank, and there's this lady that always would wait for my teller window, right? Like she would just like let people pass. She just always liked to chit chat with me. A lot of people always did. I'm a talker. I'm Italian. I can talk to anyone.
Mhm.
Um, and I never paid attention to what she did. And one day she came up to my window and she was like, "Hey, I really want you to work for me." And she slid me her card and I flipped it over and she was a chiropractor. And at that time, I think I was 16 years old. Like I had never heard of chiropractic, never heard the term. My family had never been to one. And I always say she said something that forever changed my life.
Mhm.
She said, "Whatever you're getting paid at the bank, I'll pay you more." And I was like, "Oh, I'm in, whatever. I'm going to get paid more." So I ended
Right.
up working for her and her husband. And that's how I started my chiropractic career.
Wow. Okay, that's a really fascinating story, and I don't feel like a lot of people would know that about you because I've never heard that, and I follow like a lot of y'all stuff and listen to you speak, so that's really interesting.
The
But
craziest thing, can I tell you the craziest thing?
Mhm.
Her husband, husband and wife, they're both chiropractors. They don't know that I'm a chiropractor. Like they ended up moving away and moving out into the mountains, and I hadn't talked to them. I've tried to find them before because I want to tell them like that what you guys did for me like impacted my life in such a profound way and so many others, right? Because I'm able to share my knowledge to help other people create a big impact. So I wish I could find them and tell them. They have no idea.
Right. And you know, it's a lot. It's funny you say that because a lot of people that I know and I'm close with, they always say you never know what you think, do, or say is gonna reach out, thousands of people tomorrow. So I feel like that's so fitting here because if that lady and her husband never reached out to you, I would never know you. All these people who you've changed their lives, they would never know you. So I guess that answers my next question, which is how do you think that led up to your life today and who you are today?
Yeah. I mean,
So
it was really, I never thought, even when I worked for them, I never thought about becoming a chiropractor. And then I ended up moving and I worked for another chiropractic office that had three doctors in it. I worked there for many years. I ended up kind of running the show, being their office manager. And I remember one time my doc said to me, he was like, "Hey, he's like, what are you doing? Like, what do you like?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I doing? I don't know, I'm calling patients." But he's like, "No, no, no. Like, what are you doing like with your life?" Oh, he's like, "You really should become a chiropractor." And I just had never thought of it up until that point, and I loved it, and I love the people, and I love the philosophy, and I love what we were about. And it was like something instantaneously clicked in me, and I knew that that was my life's calling. I knew that that's what I had to do, and so I ended up fast tracking through school, and that's how I became a chiropractor. And I think that I always had entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, I was starting businesses since I was really little. I was always trying to have like some sort of side hustle when I was working. So I think the combination of my passion for chiropractic and my entrepreneurial spirit is what led me to do what I do now, which is consulting for healthcare providers all over the planet, right? And
Right.
so it's those two things.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were definitely on the path. Like everything's definitely planned out. You were definitely on the path for that. But I'm sure you've been through a lot of trauma, pain and revival. I'm sure you've been through a lot of trauma, a lot of ups and downs throughout that process. So how did you deal with it? How did you, still persevere, I guess?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was not an easy road by any means. And I would say, like, for me, like, my storyline, um, my trauma has always centered around money. Like, I've always had a really, really bad relationship with money. And I think that that has been mostly because, I grew up without a lot. You get into this mentality where you work an hour, you get paid for that hour. It's this like equal exchange of how much time you can get to how much you can earn.
Mhm.
And that created a lot of like limitations and stress, because I was always very scared that the other shoe was going to drop and I would have nothing again, right? And so it's really interesting because trauma can come in so many different forms, and that trauma lives out in your life in so many different ways. And for me, that's just been my constant like narrative that I have to battle, is that not everything's going to fall apart, and that money will come, and that I provide value into the world. And that's a hard thing to break when you are growing up and you don't understand that you should get paid for the value that you provide.
Yeah, and I think that like trauma of any sort can manifest in so many different ways in your
Yeah.
life, like physically and emotionally, and like you're talking about, you don't feel like you add value to the world, and like even I feel that even though we've been through different traumas, but we still there's still something that we can come together in, and I'm sure like that is with many people and many different things, but I think that's the beautiful thing about sharing your story and me sharing my story is that we can come together in this one thing, even though we don't come from, the same thing.
Yeah. I always say it takes self work to create self worth.
Mhm.
And essentially what happens is our traumas, no matter where they come from, how they live inside of us, what happened to us, what it really does is it depletes your self worth, right? And then that's why you don't think that you can show up with that kind of value. And it does take, number one, an awareness of what that trauma is, a
Mhm.
recognition of it, and then a real desire to consistently and forever work on it. Because I think you and I both know that those traumas don't go away, right? They're still like literally neurologically embedded in every single cell in your body. They still
Mhm.
exist. It's how do you move through them, and can you move through them faster and better so that you can show up and increase that self-worth to provide more for others.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between like so say me or someone who has been through maybe someone's been through the same exact trauma. Like my mom, me and my mom, we she's been through a lot of the same stuff that I've been through, but we're on totally different scales. And she's a drug addict and she's in prison, but then I'm still a child, but like I'm not even on that road to go down to where she is. So I think it's that just adds on to your point of it really matters what you do
Mm-hmm.
with your trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to go down the bad road. You don't have to be like, your trauma. You don't have to be like that. You can persevere and overcome.
Right. And I think that that's what's really powerful about you, and what I loved about you from the moment that I met you is that you do face your trauma, right? You
Mhm.
share, you lean into it, you talk about it, you don't ignore it, you don't avoid it. And that's the only way to move through it, right? That's the only way to actually take control of that thing that happened to you and leverage it and utilize it for something better. Because
Mhm.
if you ignore it, it's gonna get the best of you, right? It will begin to dictate how your life goes. And unfortunately, you could end up in a spot like your mom if you didn't do what you were doing. And so that's really powerful in your story. And I've always loved that about you.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So this is like maybe a controversial question, and I feel like I know your answer to it, but I still want to know what you're going to say. So, So obviously you think that pain has purpose, and we think that you kind of been talking about it, but I want you to just elaborate on it a little bit more, like how pain has purpose, just for my viewers to understand, you know?
That's actually really interesting. I don't know that I've ever thought of the answer to that, but I don't know that I would say that pain has purpose. I would say that it's your reaction has purpose, right? And so
Mm.
because pain can come and go. So, I mean, there's different types of pains that you probably feel throughout the day, emotionally, physically, spiritually, that are little blips, right? They're there, then they go away. They're there and they go away. So not every single pain that exists within you has purpose. It's the moment that you provide meaning to that pain, and the meaning that you give that pain and the reaction that you have to that pain that will lend the purpose that's necessary. And sometimes it's not good, and sometimes it is, right? And so again, I think it's really about the meaning that you provide it that will be the purpose.
That's good. I didn't think about it like that, because I was thinking more along the lines of like trauma, and I'm like, well, trauma has purpose. It can, but yeah, it can. It doesn't always. You know, depends on how you deal with it. So that's very good. I like that. So what type of trauma have you, or trauma pain? I mean, like you said, you've been through, you know, money trauma, but and if that, and you know what I'm thinking about right now is like I have so many thoughts going through my head with you. Like this is such an amazing, and I'm so honored that you came on today. Actually, if you didn't have gone through what you went through, you wouldn't be here today to tell all these people and to mentor all the people that you mentor and do all the things you do. But I feel like sometimes I'm sure it has to be like you still think and sit with yourself and you're just like, oh, it sucks that I had to go through this. Or, you know, I'm sure we all throw a little bit of a pity party, if you will. That's like kind of bad terminology, but you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. What other things are you asking? What other things
Yeah.
I've been through in my life? Probably for me, one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through is actually losing my dad. My dad was born in 1927. So he was in his 50s when he had me. So he was a lot older. Yeah, he was 54. And so like growing up, you know, you always have in the back of your mind that your father's not going to be around for very long and that time is very limited. That in and of itself, having that mentality with anyone that you love is difficult and traumatic and can cause deep wounds. I think because of that, actually, because of the relationship that I had with my dad, has caused me to actually have crazy relationships with, you know, men in my life, like because that was such a different type of relationship. He was so much older. The way that he instilled morals and beliefs within me was different.
Mm-hmm.
But the hard part is I lost him as soon as I graduated chiropractic school.
Mm-hmm.
1 month after I graduated, he had a massive stroke. And that was probably one of the hardest things that I had been through. And it was interesting because what I realized is that trauma will exist even though you have prepared yourself in any way, shape, or form for it, right? Like sometimes you can't avoid what's coming. And I've also realized that it doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
You just learn to live with it.
Yeah, that's so true. I saw a quote the other day, and now I'm stealing it. It's going to be like my tagline. It said, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is not."
Right.
And I feel like that's so fitting because we're always going to go through things, even if you have the white picket fence house with the perfect parents and all that, and have money and all of the things. One day those people are bound to die. You're bound to get hurt no matter what. And just loving in general, anything is being vulnerable, and that's causing you future trauma, future pain. And I get it with the dad part. Like my dad's not present, so like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I weren't to be aware of it, it would definitely influence my relationship with men, and it still does, even though I am aware of it. Like it still influences it.
It
As long
does.
as I try for it not to.
Yeah.
So I just find it so funny that you said that, because I was like, oh, felt very related with that. But
We all
before,
have some, I think we all have some sort of parental trauma in some way, shape, or form. Some of it's very minor for some people, and some of it's much larger scale, right? And it's just
Yeah.
how do you learn to move through it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important to learn how to move through it. I think it's hard. And I was gonna ask you, like, how do you think it's best for someone to move through it? But also, like, I don't know, because it's tailored to everyone's own experience, you know?
Right. And I don't think that there's any one right way to do it. I don't think that there's any like magic formula of like, hey, here's how you move through stages of grief. Here's how you process your trauma. Here's how you talk to a therapist, or you should talk to a therapist. You shouldn't talk to a therapist. I think everybody, we have to recognize that everybody processes things differently. Every person experiences things differently. Every person, like you said, every person's trauma, whether those can be the same things, the meaning that we provide them is going to be different from one person to the other, which means that the process of moving through it will be different. I think the most important thing is just the awareness. I talk to my friend all the time. Her name's Tamika, and we talk about emotions and feelings. Probably because of my dad being so much older, I'm not the most emotional person. Not that I'm like not emotional and I don't care, but I just don't move through lots of emotions on a day-to-day basis like some other people, which is, it's fine either way. But we talk about emotions. You can't move through an emotion if you don't even acknowledge that you have it.
Yeah.
And so that's like what I was telling you. It's the acknowledgement. That's always the first step in any process, no matter what that process looks like for you. First, you have to acknowledge that it exists. You have to pay attention to it, because if you don't, then it will not move.
Right. There's that old saying, it's like knowing is half the battle. So,
Right.
and I think it goes for everything. Because I will say that's like the biggest thing for me is when I still am healing. Healing is like a never ending process. I don't think you ever get over it. Like you've said. But I think it all started with me being like, oh, something's not right here. Not that it's a problem, not that it's like, oh, something's wrong with you, you're weird. It's just like, it is what it is. And you have to work on it and you have to fix it. But it's not even like you have to fix it, because you're never going to be able to fix it. It's like a never ending project that just like lingers.
Yeah, I know. You're right. It is a forever ending process. I mean, healing is, they always say that healing is a journey, and you kind of think about that and you're like, oh, that's kind of corny, but it's not. It's the reality, and it's the truth. It's a journey. And you can't stop that. Um, you can't think that your healing is ever done. I think that that's also important. Like people say that a lot, like, oh, I feel like I've healed from that. I've moved on from that. But those things still exist. They're still part of who you are. And the reality of it is we are human beings, and anything that we've experienced in the past, in this moment, those things are going to arise again in some way, shape, or form. And so there's a lot of people that are like, I forgot that. I let that go. And I'm like, did you really let it go? I mean, I get that you don't give it meaning or like stew on it or think about it anymore, but it still exists within you, right? And so to try to stop working on bettering a deep trauma wound is not a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that oftentimes, I don't know what just happened. My microphone was like making this really loud, excruciating noise. But anyway, so like I was saying, I think it's like we've been saying, trauma is hard and it's difficult, but you have to make the action. So if you're listening today, it's like a call to action for you. If you've recognized that you have a trauma, just acknowledge it. That's half of it. You have to work on it eventually, but acknowledging it is half of it. And I know for me, and I'm sure for you as well, there's certain things in our lives that we ignore and we try to pretend like don't exist, but they do. And it comes up in our life all the time. And that's okay. It's okay to like have gone through stuff and things bother you. It's all right.
It is, because we all have gone through things and stuff bothers us. And guess what? We're going to go through more stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. And like, cause like, I know for me, like, I'm always like, I'm trying to like, oh, it doesn't bother me. It's fine. But it does bother me. And that's okay. Cause I was taught that it's not okay.
Right.
But it is okay. okay to
Exactly.
not be okay. It's okay to have feelings, you know? That's so like sappy and corny, but like it really is, you know?
It is true. No, but it's true. And like again, that's what we've been talking about. That's the theme of this show, right? The theme of this podcast is, like you you can't ignore that stuff. I
Yeah,
mean, the second that you ignore it, then you give it more power. The second that you become aware of it, you take away its power. And so if it bothers you, acknowledge it. If you're feeling it, acknowledge it. If somebody's hurting you, acknowledge it, right? Like if you don't want to end up a certain way, acknowledge it.
exactly. Um, I just think it's so funny. Like, I love this episode. This is going to be like my favorite episode ever. But I think, I think it's hard, but you can do it. Like I'm saying, like I've been saying, like we've been saying, healing's a never-ending process. I want to know what you think about the saying when people say "let it go." What do you think about that? Because you can't really let it go.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really easy to say let it go when it's not the thing that you're the one holding on to, right? Like so like yeah, you could be something could bother you, somebody could have hurt you. It's very easy for me to say, "You know what? Just let it go." But if I was the one that was holding on to it, I would know that it's not that easy, right? And so it's an
Right.
interesting thing where people want to make something feel so insignificant. Um, I would personally love to have somebody in my life that instead of them telling me, just let it go, ask them, how can I help you move through that? Right. Because I think
Yeah.
that that's way more supportive and way more empowering and way more powerful to acknowledge that somebody else is actually struggling with something. Because we don't know, like we talked about before, I don't know all the culmination of experiences that you've had in your past that have led you to that very moment of holding on to something that didn't serve you. I don't know why you're doing that. So I can't tell you to let it go, but I could support you throughout that process. And so that would just be my thing is if you have somebody in your life that continually tells you that, to maybe ask them for a little perspective shift and a little help to say, stop telling me to let it go and ask me how you can help me move through it. Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So to wrap up a little bit, a lot of our listeners are navigating their own challenges and traumas, and like we've been talking about. But what would be one message that you would like to leave them with?
Mm. Life is messy. Like that's just the reality of it. Nobody's life is perfect. Don't compare yourself to anyone. Life is messy. It's always going to be messy, right? If we didn't have to be involved with any other person on the planet and you lived solo by yourself, maybe it wouldn't be messy, but that is not what life is about. And so I really like, I'm in this era of just embrace the mess, embrace it and know that that's what it's going to be like because I'm now 43 and life's never been not messy. And so to want something that isn't that, I just don't think is realistic. Mess is okay.
Yeah. All right. That's great. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us and taking the time out of your schedule to be here with me. I enjoyed connecting with you. Thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you all have a great day.